I always knew, from a very young age, that my family was different. Not different in the curious or amusing sense, like those eccentric families in movies that everyone envies, but different in the way that makes you feel alone even when surrounded by people. For a long time, I thought it was all in my head, that maybe I was too sensitive, too dramatic. But today, looking back, and maybe that's why, even though I thought I'd never tell anyone, I feel compelled to share this story with strangers, because sometimes it's easier to talk to those who don't have expectations, who didn't live their childhood, alongside you and therefore won't try to justify the unjustifiable. Until then, I was the princess of the house, not in the pampered sense of the word, but I was the only child, the apple of my parents' eyes, the child who was expected, dreamed of, cared for with all the zeal in the world. My mother braided my hair before school. My father brought little treats whenever he came home from work. The nights were ours, of stories told in bed and cuddles before bedtime. But everything changed with the arrival of Lucas. My brother was born with health complications, and from the first day at home, the air seemed to change. The atmosphere became more tense, heavier, as if all the love that had previously been shared generously now had to be channeled in a desperate effort to keep that fragile little being alive. Suddenly, I became a supporting player in my own story. It was as if I had been cast aside, unceremoniously replaced. Not that I didn't love my brother. On the contrary, I wanted to love him. I wanted to protect him. I wanted to be part of what was happening. But at the same time, it hurt. It hurt to see my mother running around with medicines and inhalers and telling me, "You're a big boy. You can wait." It hurt to see my father come home and, instead of asking how my day at school had been, throw himself on the sofa exhausted, worrying only about Lucas's next doctor's appointment. I began to learn that my pain was less that. My needs could be postponed, that I only mattered when there was time, and there almost never was. I remember a specific night, one of many that have remained etched in my memory. I had a high fever. I was burning up, shaking, scared. I called my mother crying, but she was bathing Lucas because he had had a crying fit and got all dirty. "You're a big girl, my love. Just wait a little while, okay?" she said from the door, without even coming close. I waited and cried alone. Over time, I got used to it. The feeling of being invisible became a constant backdrop. When I turned 15, I decided it would be different. I planned my party. As if it were the event of the century, I made lists, chose a theme, bought a blue dress I'd been dreaming of for months in a shop window. My eyes sparkled just imagining the evening. But on the day of the party, Lucas had an asthma attack, and the plans vanished like smoke. "We'll do it another time," my parents said. But that day never came. No one ever brought it up again. Not even me, because I learned that insisting only caused more frustration. I grew up like that, always in the background, always making concessions, always hearing that Lucas needed more, that I should understand, that I was strong, until the day I met Carlos. He saw me. He didn't just look at me, he really saw me. For the first time, someone asked what I wanted, and I, who had spent my whole life believing that my wishes didn't matter, found myself blossoming alongside him. We married early, and many judged, but for me it was like finding air after years of suffocation. It was freedom, it was choice, it was love without bargaining. When I found out I was pregnant, I was overwhelmed by an avalanche of feelings. Happiness, of course, but also a visceral fear. Fear of repeating my parents' mistakes, fear of making a child feel as invisible as I felt, fear of failing as a mother before I even started. But Carlos, always him, held me by the hand and said, "We're going to do it differently. Our family is going to be different." We threw ourselves into the preparations for the baby shower with affection, with care, with a joy I had never experienced before. I was overjoyed. We chose the decorations, the menu, the venue, every detail with care. It was more than a celebration. It was the celebration of my chance to do it all again. And then, 3 days before the event, my mother called me, her voice already carrying that tone I knew well, that mixture of urgency and emotional blackmail. Lucas had lost his job and was in an anxiety crisis. "Can't you postpone the tea?" "He's not well enough to see so many people happy right now," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It was at that moment that something inside me broke, or maybe it finally mended itself. "No, Mom, not this time." She hung up on me. The next day, I got the message from the decorator. The event had been canceled, at my mother's request. She called all the suppliers, told them I'd given up, that the event wouldn't happen anymore. And as if that wasn't enough, she told the whole family that I was being selfish, that I'd rather have a party than help her brother. When I went to confront her, she cried. Of course she cried. She always cried. I was only thinking about Lucas, she said, as if that justified everything. Carlos lost his patience. It was the first time I'd heard his voice so firm. And when are you going to think about your daughter? He shouted. My mother was in shock, as if she'd been hit by a truth she'd never dared to face. And I felt alive. For the first time, someone was on my side, unconditionally. I decided it was enough. I changed the location of the baby shower. I told my real friends. I blocked my mother and brother from social networks. We only invited those who really cared, and it was beautiful. Not because of the decorations or the souvenirs, but because for the first time in my life, I put myself first. My mother tried to show up. As expected, she went to the venue, cried at the door, but Carlos prevented her from entering. I saw her there, outside, and I turned my back. Not for revenge, but for protection. Some people call me cruel. They say she's my mother, that she deserves a second chance. But those people don't know what it's like to grow up begging for crumbs of attention. They don't know what it's like to be forgotten, silenced, ignored. They don't know what it's like to spend your childhood believing that love is something that has to be earned all the time. Today, with my daughter in my arms, I look at her and promise, you will never have to compete for love. You will never have to make yourself small to fit into a tight corner in anyone's heart. You will grow up knowing that you are loved, that you are seen, that you are a priority. As for my mother, she still texts me, says she forgives me, that she misses me. But I don't reply, because forgiveness isn't something you impose, it's something you ask for. And above all, it's something you deserve.